Okay, so if you have joined us today, it's probably because you saw my video of the front squat on Instagram and you're popping over to hear a little bit more about the mechanics breakdown for that lift. So as I said, I am 9 months postpartum and I'm just getting back into lifting and lifting kind of on that heavier side again. I really am going to focus primarily on the concentric portion of the squat, right? So the rising portion of the squat as opposed to that eccentric lowering portion of the squat, because I think I actually did a pretty good job on the lowering part of the squat. I am proud of the position that I'm able to keep my trunk in with my elbows and arms up forward in that nice good front rack position while keeping my chest up tall as I'm coming down into that bottom portion of the squat. So I'm really able to continue to maintain pretty good depth with that squat. And that's something that I was able to maintain throughout my pregnancy. And then now coming back in, that depth has been something I've been proud of. One of the reasons why I like to video my squats is to really watch the mechanics. As I mentioned in the video, I'm starting to feel better about my lifts. However, it's not just, one thing to be up on the leaderboard and say, hey, this is how much I lifted. It felt okay. It felt good, but it didn't look great. As a physical therapist, I love to break down the mechanics of things and really kind of see how body parts are moving. And I want to move the most efficiently. And right now, I'm not moving the most efficiently, but I'm having a hard time really honing in on what it is that I'm having difficulty with. So I grab my camera, I set that up, and I watch my form. In the video, you can tell that my butt shoots up pretty high early on from that descent position. So as I'm coming up into that, and that lets me know that I am making a more quad dominant version of that squat. So in this position, when I'm at the bottom and I'm coming up here first, I've really put the weight more anteriorly and I'm lifting up with my quad. So I'm getting that nice good knee extension, but really early on without having the hip extension. And that means my glutes are not firing optimally and they're really not as active as they should be. This makes total sense for where I'm at as a patient postpartum and as an athlete, if you will, because I've had a lot of glute gripping in my postpartum phase because of tight glute muscles and weakness in the pelvic floor. And so when you have weakness in one region, we generally get tightness in another region to kind of compensate for that. And so for me, I noticed that mostly with a lot of glute gripping. And glute gripping means I'm having my external rotators and my extensors of my hip just get really tight and kind of bind down and basically stay gripped. And what that's doing is it's trying to give me more stability within my pelvic girdle and my hip girdle region for me to carry out the tasks that I want. However, the side effect to that is because those muscles are getting tight to maintain this pseudo stability position, I also now am developing weakness within those muscles. So those muscles are not firing as optimally as they should, and I'm really not able to kind of harness or develop the strength that I need in those glute muscles to help impact the squat. So again, going back to this position here, you can see a little bit of an anterior weight shift in my feet as I start to come a little bit more forward in this position. I start to shoot up with the butt first and then kind of hinge in this position. So it's almost like a two-part hinge that I'm doing. Knee extension and then hip extension. And for someone that squats, we know that's not optimal. We know that that is taking more time to go through that motion. I've never been a very fast squatter to begin with. My squats have always kind of been this painful, slow, I get down on the bottom of the hole and then I'm not popping up as fast as I should. And that's something that has only been more challenging in the postpartum phase. However, it goes really back to just keying in and activating that glute to come up from that position. Also, if you watch my feet throughout the duration of the squat, you can see my feet almost kind of shift the weight 3 different times. So when I'm down at the bottom, I have this anterior weight shift as I come up, and then I start to sit back into my heels because that's when I realize, oh shoot, I gotta turn those glutes on to extend my hips. If not, I kind of just end up in this position here. So that's when my weight shifts back into my heels again. However, I get this third shift that's anterior as I'm going up in this position here. So now I've started to shift back as I'm extending through the hips, but then I'm coming through this last little bit where I'm shifting my weight onto my toes. I'm almost coming up with a little bit of a heel raise because I'm trying to muster in every little bit of power that I have to continue into that last portion of the rise from the squat. So I really even think I'm almost using my gastroc at that point to try and get even more power to lift up in that position there, right? So again, this is not 100% optimal mechanics. I'm proud of the lift that I was able to do. I think it was 135 pounds, 140 pounds in that position there with relatively good trunk form. There was no pain at all in the squat. It just didn't look the best, right? So if you break down the mechanics of things and you kind of see where you have opportunities for improvement, right? So engaging the glutes a little bit faster, working on some lengthening of the glutes so then I can really harness that glute power is going to be one of the things. Focusing on getting a better kind of solid foot position as well early on so I don't have the weight shift back and forth. And then of course, appropriate activation of my core muscles to allow my weight to stay solid in that position instead of shifting the weight kind of front and back can also be helpful. I don't think I have an issue with range of motion. So a lot of people, if they're thinking their squat form isn't the best, they look at range of motion. I don't have an issue with hip range of motion getting down into the bottom of the squat or ankle range of motion. That's all been pretty good. But again, I think it goes into that glute strength, being able to capitalize on that to help with that lifting position. I love breaking the images down or the movements down, if you will, by video. It allows me to kind of look at things and then know where I want to kind of shift my focus in training to really help improve that squat. So if you are having difficulties with your squats, and if your squats look anything like this postpartum squat looks with this two-part hinge, and you want to know more about how do I fix this, how do I know if my squat is doing the right thing and which part of my squat mechanics need to be addressed first to improve the squat and improve my performance, shoot me a message. Let me know. I'd love to work with you and break down your mechanics too.